So I'm here with Mark from On the Mark
Yep.
LLC.
Yep.
You are a celebrity barber, the first barber we've had on the show.
I
right?
appreciate that.
100 episodes, only one barber, and you're it.
Hey, I'm very honored. Thank you, Amy, for having me first and foremost to
No,
Get Busy
absolutely.
podcast. We're getting busy, so I appreciate your lead into that, and we are having a great conversation. If you want to go into that in
Yeah.
the green room about what we were talking about the balance, inequality,
Yeah.
and the men and women of today's society of like not having an ultra one side or the other. And I think like your voice, what you're saying in there was right on, spot on with that, and just kind of lead into that what you kind of feel what we could kind of have more of, I should say, in the cities like Seattle.
Yeah. No, we were talking about it because you have a very colorful career and a very interesting business, right? And you're rubbing elbows with, celebrities all the time. You're a celebrity barber, which I think is so fucking cool that I cannot even contain myself. And you see a lot of things, but you are a very grounded human, right? And you feel what you were very kind to me when I was talking about how I felt when I saw what I saw in the streets,
100%.
right? Because I was unprepared for it. But we were talking about, Gary Vee, right? We'll just put it out there, and how much of an impact Gary Vee and his platform have had on entrepreneurs like you, on athletes, on all kinds of people. But it is a largely male audience.
Right.
And there is a need for, like what you and I were talking about, a balance of voices.
100%.
There are a lot of women out there who are also celebrity barbers, or who are entrepreneurs and creators, and there isn't the same platform, right? It's decentralized for some reason. So that just means there's a gap in the market, and somebody needs to fill it, or we just need to fucking talk about it, right?
100%. No, like the back and forth that we're having right now. I think it's like to have that camaraderie between the society of male and female, and the dominance of, like you were saying, the male when it comes to on platforms. And 80% I think is the number that you put out there of like that are on shows like that. I think it's important. Shout out to I love everybody. I love Gary. I love everybody. But we were talking about The View, and like it's either one side or the other. It seems like when it comes to a back and forth between male and female and all in between, like there needs to be a show that like really encompasses all of that together, and it needs to be authentic. It needs to be real. It needs to be, and I think today's society is so scared of saying the wrong thing or offending the wrong
haters.
Audience.
They're scared of haters and trolls. And so what that does is it creates an imbalance in the ecosphere, right? The ecosystem of entrepreneurship and creativity, right? And so, a part of that community, women, right? We are a part of the creator community. Like it is largely, we're reliant on Gary Vee, who has done so much for entrepreneurs, right? But it's a very male voice, right? Very much in the school of a Joe Rogan, right? And that's cool, man. Like he's got his vibe. But we need to be better at representation.
I hear it. So what should we call the show?
I don't know.
Amy, let's just get it going.
Come on, let's rip. You're the barber, right?
Yeah. No, this is what I do for a living, is I talk to people and I get to listen, right?
Yeah.
And I get to listen.
You do. You're like a therapist.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And it's amazing to hear, because you got to open your heart up. And I always tell people I might be a celebrity barber, and I've had to look at myself. I used to think it was like a corny term until I was like on set one day in LA, and they were like, "So are you a general stylist or a barber or a celebrity stylist?" And I was
what's
like,
"What's
the difference?"
How does that work?
And I thought it was kind of corny. And they were like, "Well, like 5 times the pay," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm a celebrity barber." So that kind of was like because I used to think it was like corny, and like I service everyone when it comes to whoever walks through that door. Like it's my job to make you feel like welcome, warm, and really listen to, like, everybody's energy is different. And that's really important, to really have empathy of everyone's like challenges, needs, what they're coming in. Some people are ready to have the wedding of their lifetime. Some people just got fired from their job and filed bankruptcy. And at the end of the day, like to be able to pour into each and every one of those people has really been, I think, the essence of why I've been able to do what I've been able to do. Is like empathy and caring for what you're saying. So I think like you said, what does that talk track look like? What does that show look like? I think we're figuring that out as we go.
I think so, and I think there's a need for it, right? The problem is people are scared, right? Like what you go back to that whole fear factor of, what happens online, right? Like that fear. And I was just talking about this in the last recording, right? About how fear is paralyzing, right? And I'm sure you see, because really, you're a therapist, right? You're like a bartender with scissors, right? And a razor,
That's
like
awesome.
it's just like you're in a very unique situation, right? Because you hear things and you have a vow of silence, right? Like you can't talk. You have NDAs for beard trims.
100%.
I don't fucking know. Right? Like 100%. How does it all work? Like it's very mysterious.
You said it best right there. I think like I got to where I have because sometimes you have to forget some things, and like sometimes you have to be able to share them and pour them out to the world when it comes to like your audience or your next client or Amy that's sitting here, that like how do we take in from the most authentic space everything that we've learned from people that we're coming in contact with, and being able to share it with each other in a way that is empathetic, that is empowering, and that is real. And I think at the end of the day, like we were talking about the Deion Sanderses and the people that are like polarizing figures of the ecosystem of today's society. And I think you have he said it best when I was on a show with him. It was during the pandemic.
Neon Deion.
So we did Prime.
That's my team. I'm
You're a buff.
Buffs.
Okay,
Colorado.
I love it. No, it's
why is he polarizing?
Well, because his voice is so he's not scared.
Right.
What you said it right there, and it's also why he's
But when he's not scared, it comes off as swagger. Right. And
100%.
So keep going.
No, I think it's just what you said. Is just that you got to have he said it, I think, in the show that we did. You got to have some game when it comes to like your talk and your speak, and when it comes to that, it has to be real. And at the end of the day, people could feel it, and they could feel whenever you're coming off like. I've done lots of podcasts, and I told myself today, like, I'm not going to talk about the same things that I've talked about over and over again, and I want to just be authentically real, and it comes by way of like not still wanting to cut at the stadium and like make sure that like you keep your job that you have, and that's like I think that's what's so cool about this realm here is it's the in between of the Monster Energy and the bottom first episode of your podcast, and I think that's like such a cool space to live in because it's safe, and I think all spaces can be safe, but I think as well we need to also understand that like we need to open up the room a little bit, and we need to make sure that we understand that like we all need a platform to be able to express ourselves in a way that we're not judged, but like it's okay to have experiences that only you've had, and like that might be your experience and that might be your point of view, but that doesn't make it right or wrong. That just makes it like your life experience that you went through, and to have that safe space for everyone, Amy, I think is like the show that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's so interesting that you would bring up Coach Prime, because he is very good at that safe space thing. And he is so respectful of the concept that everyone has a story. You don't know what the pain is that they're going through, right? And so the swagger that we see on the outside is really not who he is on the inside, right? And he just makes people comfortable.
I think you're right 100%. It's like he's 1 second he's Deion, the next second he's Prime.
Yeah, exactly.
And Prime is that guy that won the Super Bowls, that was doing that dance for the Cowboys and the Niners. And, that's who we all came to love, but it's also why he could live in Colorado. Is that other side of that more, I would say, not conservative, but making conservatives also feel safe when it comes to his beliefs,
right,
and what
his compassion.
That's right.
Right, like he loves these kids on his team.
That's right.
Truly, like a father.
100%.
But at the same time, if you're in Boulder, where I live very close to Boulder, in the winter, and there's 5 inches of snow, there's going to be one Lambo out, and it's going to be Coach Prime's.
Right. It better be. No. With the NIL, you never know these days. But no, he's a culture setter.
Yeah.
When it comes to just moving the needle.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why when they chose Boulder, I said when the culture, and he was making noise at I think what was the place in the first place he had his college
Liberty, right?
Yeah, no, it was at a
Southern University.
This is terrible. Anyways, he just had left there, and it was like, what's going to be your next move? Is it going to be the pros? Is it going to be high school? Is it going to be college? And I say this to say this, that I think Colorado was the perfect landing spot for him, because if it would have been LA, he would have just been right back in the mix of everything. But like you said, he stands out in Boulder because he's authentically himself.
He is unapologetic.
Yep.
He's just him.
Yep.
And he's a really good representation of entrepreneurship, right? Because the man is like you, right? Like he's a serial launcher of LLCs, right? He's taught all of his kids,
right?
Shador, Shiloh, all of the kids,
right.
About launching businesses and being a brand, really.
100%.
Like with Shador and all of that one, he's not here and we don't have to make him the topic, but it is very interesting, what you can learn from the people in your community. And he has become such a big symbolic part of the community in Boulder.
100%. I love to hear that, because like you said, to have both sides of the house, to have that flashy side, and like you said, to have that empathetic side of like each kid is like his own, and treating them like that is really what you feel. And so that's amazing to hear, like that, like no matter what he's going through in life, you don't even know like how things that are being removed and things that he's going through, and then you hear it and you're like, man, he stood with a smile.
Yeah, he did.
And to do that, we don't need to keep talking about, but to do that is like, it's like empowering, and it's also like reminds you of like what you might be going through today. You think it's something, but
it's comforting.
Yeah. And just like the people on the street you saw, we were talking about earlier about coming in, is like everybody has a different story that you don't know that they're going through.
Don't judge them.
Right? Amen
like,
to that.
Just don't judge them. And it's okay. So we're just going to go there, Mark, because I didn't know what to expect when you came. Like I did the things that you're supposed to do, but you're dancing around this thing, right? And we've never done this on this podcast, right? But you're talking about bringing voices together and unifying, right? Like bringing people together from two different viewpoints.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do right now in this country because there is such a huge divide. Right. And we went down Gary V. Avenue. We took a little side turn at Coach Prime. But let's just put it out there. Like we are a country divided, right? And what we're talking about is through creative means and platforms, how to find a voice or voices that represent all of the people, not one side or the other. I'm not saying it very clearly because I'm not used to going there on this show. So like help fill it in for me.
Yeah, no, I think you said it best. I mean, like you got Madison Avenue meets like who's in the Oval Office right now when it comes to like the two polarizing sides of the house. And the crazy part is that like President Trump also dominated in New York City, and he also has a very a viewpoint that could be looked upon as like conservative. And to have those two sides of the house is why I think you saw, not to go to politics, but like you saw the polls come out the way they did with like Hispanics and people like changing sides of the house of feeling the empathy from somebody that was looked upon as like almost not having empathy for that specific community.
Yeah.
And I think there's a playbook to that. And there's a playbook to that when it comes to just being bolder, and just being real. And I think at the end of the day, like, people are so scared to do that. And it's why, like, I think this conversation is so refreshing, is that to just stand out there and say, hey, we love you for you, and whatever that may be, like, like we could have our own separate viewpoints, but we could also respect each other and joust in a way that is like competitive sparring, but also like has respect.
Right.
For at the end of the day, we come from different places,
right,
and that's okay.
But it's also, there's a lot of inflammatory language and headspace right now. And what I see in like the entrepreneur community, the creative, industries, is that fear is impeding our ability to make statements, right? Like the beautiful thing about this country, the most beautiful thing is the First Amendment, your protected speech, right? People are afraid to use that right now, right? You've got ICE dropping out of helicopters and taking people, right? How do my friends who are graffiti artists, actually in Seattle, Austin, they're scared, right? That's an art form, that's expression.
Right.
How do you, like, as two people coming from different, how do we bridge that?
I think like we're living it right now. And when I say that, it might sound like cliche and it might sound like safe, but I believe honestly that we're watching it play out before our eyes in a way that every day you turn on the television, you're like, holy smokes, holy shit, like this is insane. And then the other side might feel the same way about.
But they're turning on a different channel, right?
True.
So we're all in siloed information bubbles. So we're not all getting the same information, right? And that creates those silos.
Right.
That creates that vapor lock for the creators,
Right.
right? And it's that energy for someone who creates is just building and building on itself. So eventually, we'll get great art out of it, right?
Well, it comes back to what I believe we're like in the modern day Renaissance too. And I say that in a sense, and I don't mean to keep coming back to Dion, but his shoe back in the day was like a cross trainer that like was bought by the masses. And usually when you're a football player, you get like a cleat deal.
Yeah.
And it's not like a shoe deal.
I didn't know that.
And so, the days of like the Michael Jordans of going out and buying a shoe and then wearing it out for the night because it was like a cool shoe that had like cultural relevance in a way that was cool. I think
cultural relevance.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Keep going.
I think that is something that, what is cultural relevance? And I believe that like the artists today, and we could go as polarizing as like the Ye West of the world to like you said, like the needle has shifted of like the Virgil Abloh, let's just call it what it is, like they were best friends at one point in time. And I believe like like I loved both sides, and I just saw this piece that came out with Virgil called Free Game, and it was like how to start a like clothing brand or like a brand. And I was reading the piece about how he started his like your brand name is one of the most important parts, but also if it's broke, don't be so scared to like fix it and go in a different way. And like On the Mark is something that I've always like, it's been, obviously my name's Mark, and like it was something that was inspired by one of my dad's friends, rest in peace, that lost his life to but he had a graphic shop that was called On the Mark, and I was like, that's awesome. Like shout out to Mark Swagger, rest in peace. But like it was amazing to see, because my dad was also an artist. My parents both were in the contemporary Christian music ministry. I went to Catholic school for 10 years, and then I have like you said, like the influences of the Pete Carrolls and the the great like sports culture, and I think humanity, like all that coming together is something that like is really refreshing to see how it could bring people together. And I believe like whether it's sports, whether it's art, like I keep on going back to the Great Renaissance too, of like artists are the modern day influencers when it comes to and I didn't get into it with a lady at my family reunion, but I was talking about how like if Da Vinci or Beethoven was alive today, how we would be tracking their movements. Yeah. And it wouldn't be like, hey, tell us about a master class of how you thought of the Sistine Chapel or Michelangelo or like the greatest artists of their time, but tracking your art from a way that is like tracked like almost like NBA 2K. They like dot up the players and they know their exact movements of how they move.
Yeah.
I think art is going in that direction of like one day, like the way I cut hair is, I was taught with a comb, clipper over comb, an old school way of cutting hair because that's like real art. Yeah. And like cutting hair with the next clip. No offense to people that do that, is like, you can go to a box of clippers at home and go to Walmart and get your wall clipper, your Gillette clipper, and you could go out there and like put on the next clip and guide yourself. But it's what spawned my startup and what really like is like the most important thing to me right now is capturing our art so that when we're like gone and
the
legacy
right?
can stick with your estate, your family, and you're uniquely tied to the way you did
How are you? Okay, so let's talk about your startup.
Okay.
Because I was given a heads up, right? Yeah. Nobody outed the whole idea, but okay, is this something to do with AI?
I would say it has to do with a little piece of it when it comes to like your hair follicle, your hair strand, giving you the exact hairstyles that like say.
I have this urge right now to touch my hair and my follicle. Okay,
right.
I'm good now.
No. It's a thing though, like to be able to, like, what makes you feel the best is really what spawned the startup. Was like, how do we make people feel their best? And like, just put it out there, like, shout out to Advanced Hair Restoration, but like I was thinning a little bit, and as a barber, I equate that to almost like being
thinning hair.
Yeah, thinning hair.
And that's like going colorblind if you're an artist
or being a ball player without having cleats and a ball.
Right.
Like what are you gonna do? Like you kind of like you're reminded all the time of it, of like, dang, like this is painful.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like to fill in that space of everybody's difference of needs of what they're kind of lacking is something that like On the Mark is a men's lifestyle brand. It's not a hair brand. It's a from clothing to shoes to fragrance to candles. Like I believe like making you look and feel your best is I always say like, confidence comes from like self-esteem.
Yeah, sense of place.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
All of it.
And so, I say this often, is like On the Mark is a brand that like supersedes like just I would say like egotistical like vanity. Mm-hmm. And it's a place of like, I believe like you need to really feel your best when it comes to like a mental health aspect of it.
Yeah.
And when I
balance.
Say that, balance 100%. And the mental health side of things is really like what you touched on earlier, is like this, what you're seeing around us today and what you're seeing of the lack of feeling heard. And everybody has this like almost lack of feeling heard in a way that I think like there's a real opportunity to like bring people in that can have conversations with all walks of life.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, is open up the floor and like, we could have our differences, we can go back and forth on, but at the end of the day, we're going to give maybe, get up, give a high five, a shake, a hug, whatever it may be. And we're going to learn to respect and get to know the other side of the house.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
Yeah. Okay, hold on, Mark. Let's go back for a second. What do you, this has nothing to do with business, but I'm super curious.
Right.
All right. So what do you do when your hair is thinning, right? Like, and you don't want to get, surgery and all of that. What do you, like, what's your advice for those balding entrepreneurs out there?
I think it's like at the end of the day, it's figuring out what's inside you that really matters when it comes to, it's a quote I always say is like, looking and feeling good is a mental health thing that supersedes vanity. And like what makes you feel your best inside is really what matters. way
true.
more than like what you see on the outside, because we're all going to get old. We're all going to wrinkle up eventually one day. And at the end of the day, like it comes down to like being okay with like the essence of who you truly are, and having your tribe to really like feel like, okay, you know, I have people around me that love me. I have people around me that like, you know, whether it be your kids, whether it be your mom and dad. I think it's like making sure you keep people, because I could be a very lone wolf at times when it comes to just putting my head down, grinding, you know, and at the end of the day, like we need to learn how to, like you said, not being so scared of what like each one of us is going through, and like listen a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's really, really true. Okay, so Make Your Mark, right, is a lifestyle brand with products, right? Okay, so what are those products?
So I launched a hair care or hair product line about 6-7 years ago, and you know, I went through a divorce. This is called what it is. And at the end of the day, you know, I focused on what was the main thing. The main thing was the kids, and making sure that like the house stood in place when it comes to like my side of the house, and also being you know, empathetic of like what could I have done different? What could I have done better?
Introspection.
100%. And so when it comes to the products, you know, it's funny you say that, because what I'm putting out today and what I'm feeling about, like, you know, inspired by the next product that comes out from On the Mark, is really, I think what we're talking about today is like, what does society need? And what is that blank space that we need to fill in, and how do we do it in the most authentic way, and be able to do it in a way that also stays true to yourself when it comes to standing firm and not being scared of your morals and ethics and values of what you stand on. And I think that at the end of the day, On the Mark is exactly what it says. It's like being on the mark is really living in your truth. And it could be a failed business, it could be a business or a failed marriage, it could be that's what people relate to. Is they don't relate to just the fluff all the time. And it's really,
that is not sustainable. Right? That's not reality.
Yeah, no, that's that. And I think at the end of the day, you know, Get Busy, when I first heard from it, I was like, okay, I've done a lot of podcasts, but like, what is this about? And then to hear that, you know, Amy was a host, and to meet you in the green room, like I come into every situation like just authentically, like how can I open myself up to this person, and what are they about? And you had a very I would say it was amazing to hear from a woman's side. And I didn't even know, I thought I was gonna be talking to Robert, and I was like, this is amazing. Like this is amazing, because like you get to listen more, and you get to understand what space needs to be filled in more, because that's a real space where there's growth that needs to be had. And I think like at the end of the day, like, you know, it's special to hear someone like yourself come out and just say it for what it is. Like I feel like at times the, you know, whether it be the podcast platform or whatever, media in itself is dominated by males. And I was like, okay, like I could get with this, because like this makes our conversation back and forth real. And I knew right off the bat, like I thought you were a New Yorker, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, she's coming out like haymakers, and I'm like, okay, let's see.
I'm just a farm girl.
So am I. I'm a farm boy, and so maybe that's what it is. But see, with the tattoos and your swagger, and you just got this like essence to who you are. That's like, okay, she's like Brooklyn.
And I consider that the highest form of flattery, by the way.
No, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's like, it's because you're authentic, and you're not like just this robot up here talking about like what you're supposed to talk about, or what your maybe bosses want you to talk about. You were just gonna put it out there and say it what it was. And I think like that's important in today's society.
Yeah, I think we need to do more of that, which is why I just kind of threw my notes to the side, because what we're talking about may have nothing to do with forming an LLC or launching a business, but it has everything to do with the fabric of the psychology of this country right now.
100%.
And so that's why, you know what? Let's just throw fucking caution to the wind for one podcast episode, if you don't mind. And I have to say, I feel much better now.
No doubt. Well, that's my job. That's my job as a barber, as a stylist.
Wow, I feel like I just, I was just with the bartender, therapist.
That's my job. That's my job. I wish I could touch your hair and like make you look, you already look great. But at the end of the day, it's like that's what's needed in this country today is like everybody like forming an LLC and getting the EIN number and doing all that is like great and like that's amazing, but what is your LLC going to be about and how
what are you going to be about?
100%. And like being able to be authentic is what it's all about.
It is everything in life, in business, and relationships, in all of it. It comes down to knowing what you stand for. And when you launch a business or do anything, the essence of what you stand for will come through in everything that you do. And I will take those words to my grave.
No, amen to that, because I have had a lot of wins and I've had
losses.
Losses, right? Yeah, losses.
Like
you win some and you learn some. Yeah. That's what the great Dougie Fresh said. But at the end of the day, it really is true. It's like they're never really losses. They're just learnings of like what you can do better in the next time around, the next relationship, the next business.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way to get to the top in business is like, going from Sunnyside, Washington to Tri-Cities, then to the big city of Seattle, and, having a couple shops in Seattle that I had to really realize, like, I love having a shop, but I love talking to people and having these kind of conversations almost like tenfold. And it's great because you get the best of both worlds and you get to make people feel good. But at the same time, it's really important to double down on what you believe in and what you love. And cutting hair for 20 years, and I'm still cut hair. But at the end of the day, I have way more understanding for every person that sits in my chair was meant to sit in my chair. And just like this conversation was meant to be had. It's something that is refreshing at the age I'm at now, and having a shop or not having a shop is really special to understand. Is like we're all put here for a reason, and it's really to, I believe, like fill each other's cup up when it comes to like also making sure that your cup's full. And some days you might get up and you might feel like shit, this feels like shit. And I don't feel good and I don't want to do this today. But continuing to show up for each other is really, really fucking important.
It is right now. Like it is all the time, but especially right now. And it is very rare. It's unheard of, first of all, to have a celebrity barber, but you are so much more than that. And I feel really lucky that I got to talk with you today, and I feel really lucky that everybody who hears this will get to hear and learn from your voice. So thank you.
Amy, thank you so much, and I appreciate you guys having me on the Get Busy, and thank you for letting me be the third wheel of it all. And
you're not the third, you're the first wheel on this episode.
No, thank you so much. And anytime you guys want to have me back, or we gotta figure out a way to name our own show and figure out how to have more guests on here, to have an open mic and an open voice, to be able to say, okay, what is the topic of today? And it changes daily.
Exactly.
And to be able to give each other a safe space to do that is really important.
Exactly. And I think after we figure that out and crack that code, next up is we're going to solve male pattern baldness.
Oh, hey.
Right? Like that'll be up there.
It's coming. It's coming fast.
It's on its way.
And I tell you what, I don't know when it's gonna hit, but I know they're coming out with new sciences and new things every day where you're like, okay, that business is no longer needed.
Right.
And that
is so true. Like everything is becoming irrelevant, but that happens in business, right? There are cycles.
Right.
And where something becomes irrelevant, new opportunities present themselves.
There you go.
I think it is a very hopeful time to be
No doubt.
alive.
I think, and to kind of wrap it up, is like, that's why I started the startup was like, I saw, the shift in people don't even have an idea of how the workforce and the workplace is about to shift.
Yeah.
And being boots on the ground and being able to hear from some of the world's richest men to some of like people that are looking for a place to stay tonight is how I've been able to form like, wow, we're in a real change of society, of social norms.
Yep.
And we got to really get with the program quickly when it comes to figuring out how to adjust of the workforce, the workplace, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest point on today's episode that I can make from a business standpoint. Is like, the today's culture of like what is to be when it comes to your workplace, your workforce, whatever genre you might have art in, like you better be looking at how you can develop that in a way that like when you're gone could be standing here still today, because that's something that I think we need to really be thinking about is like if it's AI, if it's tracking your movements, if it's tracking your art to make sure that it's not lost.
Right.
Is something that I just tell all artists and people that are entrepreneurs that are listening, like you need to really be constantly morphing into the newer version of you and not get stuck in your ways of, and I know when we were all kids we used to see our parents like, oh man, that's like old school, but I think that's the biggest point of today is how do you encompass what's coming and how do you still stay true to yourself, but also develop new skills, new ways of thinking, and understanding what's coming is really the best way to
stay curious and be a seeker, right? Otherwise, you're going to be gathering dust bunnies in the corner of history.
Yep. I love that what you said right there, because it's what I feel barbering, being a celebrity barber and being the first of like the cool barber genre of like the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Barbering was almost dead, and I shouldn't say that. Like in Philadelphia, New York, they'd say, "Oh, you're tripping," but in the small town of Sunnyside, Washington, it was like salons, and it was like dominated by like the older man that has the barbershop on the corner that's about to pass away, and that's about to. The barbershop culture wasn't something that like was really relevant in small town central Washington, of Sunnyside, Washington, and to be able to say, hey. Like I'm gonna pay homage to the Fred's barbershops or the the old school barbers and not feel like, oh, we're like you guys don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's really important to maintain that respect of what was behind us, but also to take that with us forward and carry that carpet with us, because that's how you're going to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to
in whatever you do, not just barbering, right? Like it's those are wise words. And thank you so much for, first of all, coming on and also just letting us put our hair down on a business podcast. I've been holding back for so long, for 2 years.
Oh, man, thank you for having me.
Put it all out there.